What's up, y'all? J. Roos Theory, and you see who we got in the building, and she's representing the CPT, and that kind of fits into what we're going to talk about today. Did you guys see the interview that Special Ed did? Is going around everywhere where people in California aren't too happy about it. Uh, what'd you think about the Special Ed interview where he was talking about NWA brought destruction to the culture? What do you think about that?
I think it's hypocritical personally because especially as an artist, he's put out things to that type of nature as well. So I mean, if you want to be, it's just like the pop calling the color black to me.
I mean, he wasn't putting out stuff quite as shocking as NWA, but I mean, yeah, Special Ed, your catalog isn't exactly squeaky clean, but was crazy. I was talking to her a couple days before he even did the interview. I said it seemed like rap was like more fun before the West got involved, and we're both from California. She's from the Bay Area. I'm from Southern California, San Diego. So it's like I saw what rap was like before NWA, then I saw after how everybody started copying them. But one reason they started copying them because their beats was so much better than everybody else. Ice T had come out with what they would call reality rap at the time, but it was popular, but it didn't blow up like NWA. And you even had the East Coast, which really started gangster rap. Doggy Diamonds was talking about this. With what's his name, Schoolie D. He and Just Ice. Just Ice called himself a gangster, but NWA kind of spread like wildfire because they had Dr. Dre doing the production. So I know what he means because it was like he had the Fat Boys and it was just playful and Salt and Pepper. It wasn't so serious, and then the West Coast got involved, and then everybody wanted to be CB4. I mean, it's some truth to what he's saying, but I didn't like the fact he picked Wu Tang Clan over in WA, and he said they were positive. How is it Wu Tang Clan positive? They had ODB. That dude was drugged the whole group down with some of the stuff he said.
Yeah, and I just feel like it was again, it doesn't really make that much sense. I feel like he must be coming out with something because it just felt disingenuous. I just feel like it's one of those things where he was just speaking out of shock value because there's a whole catalog of artists that yes came right after NWA, but if you really were to dissect hip hop in itself, you would see a lot of other music that came around the same time that has the same type of material. So I don't know. And Wu Tang is nothing compared to NWA as far as them being a blueprint for the good hip hop today, and also yes, some of the bad hip hop, but still they're a blueprint, so you can never take that away.
The East Coast has always kind of had a thing because they feel they created the art form, so they always kind of took shots at the West. They took shots at the South. You remember when Outkast was at the Source Awards, and Andre 3000 got on the mic and he was talking to the crowd because they were getting booed, and he's like, "We're from the South, but we got something to say." And they took the baton and haven't given it back since. So, hey, East Coast, you may have started it, but that doesn't mean that no one else can do anything with it. It doesn't mean that you're the best because you started it. Like,
Yeah, as far as like what New York or like the East Coast versus the West Coast, as far as like what each coast has brought, I feel like the West Coast has definitely brought more material for the actual genre. I think they've been more influential too. I mean, there are people from the East Coast that are influential, but it's just they don't really compare the same.
but see, he's saying like we might be more influential, but he's saying it's all negative. And I mean, wait, let's see.
I don't feel like that's true.
Let's think though. Who would you consider like maybe a positive rapper from Ice T used to say he would tell the gangster side, but he would always try to tell the negative side to it so it wouldn't be glamorized. Like if he told you he robbed banks, he'd tell you the bad side of that, or if he sold dope, he'd try to show you the other side so it wouldn't be glamorized. But And then Tupac, he contradicted himself a lot. He'd have keep your head up, and then he'd have something kind of different. I'll say so. But who was just like really positive? Far Side, maybe they were just kind of like funny rappers. But who? Def Jeff, maybe I don't know if you remember him.
Oh, gotcha.
He's on that Shaquille O'Neal song. What is it? I know.
You always like to bring up Shaquille O'Neal's rap career.
Bust him in the eye, Shaq. You want to fight? Come fight me. Nah, but like who was like because the East Coast gonna always pull out Public Enemy and say they were conscious. Yeah, but I didn't like their beats. Even they said their beats were like they were trying to destroy music. It'd be like tea kettles going off, dogs barking. You couldn't even make a melody out of it. So when Dr. Dre came out with his stuff and it was high quality, people were like, wow. Now had NWA came out with some garbage music, it wouldn't have taken off. But people like to, I don't know, it's a mixed thing. It's like Special Ed was kind of right that they kind of opened the door for negativity.
But I mean, who would you say on the East Coast is positive? Because I mean, on the opposite side of the spectrum, it's like you have.
Well, they have a lot of groups. They had they did that Self Destruction album. They had Heavy D on it. He was pretty, he was kind of R&B-ish. He didn't really say nothing too crazy. Heavy D, going way back to Fat Boys. UTFO had Roxanne. I don't know. That was.
But I mean, like on the same kind of like stature as like other artists. Big. Yeah, I mean, like you can't really because the artists that I feel like they pull out in as far as like their catalog, it's kind of again they're matched. They're the same. You can't really say that like one coast is more destructive than the other because they both have the same type of content. So I mean, you know what I mean?
But were they following NWA though? Were they like, oh, that's what's selling? Because I remember the Fat Boys were talking about. I saw an interview. They said, their stuff was all playful, and then NWA came out. They're like, what is this? Like, and they took off. And who wanted to hear the Fat Boys after NWA? Because growing up in California, gang culture, you feel masculine listening to NWA. And I heard Ice Cube even say some of the songs they put out was to keep people off of them in their own neighborhood. So they kind of exaggerated things to seem extra tough so people wouldn't mess with them. Tupac said the same thing. He was like, when he acts crazy sometimes, that's just a persona to keep people off of him. But one thing I thought was interesting is Exhibit's response to Special Ed. He was talking about those are my homies and we're still active out here, like kind of a veiled threat. So I'm like, you're proving him right. If you're gonna threaten Special Ed because he has an opinion you don't like, you're showing that the West Coast is violent. Like he can have his opinion whether you agree with it or not. You gonna slap him? Like, dude, that's what's wrong with the world today. Like anybody that doesn't share your opinion, people wanna. We're still active out here. Like I'm pretty sure he's not scared. He even did a Zoom chat. I think Special Ed with Corrupt and I forget who else, but. I don't know. It's like I see his point, but he has to look at himself too. Like they say, when you point the finger, there's a three back pointing at you. So his music wasn't all positive. It wasn't so direct and in your face. NWA was more in your face. It wasn't so subliminal.
Yeah, I mean, again, he does have a point, but at the same time, it's kind of like what you said as far as, in California, we do have more gangs. We do have more heavier things that we deal with, subject matter wise. So, I mean, they are just speaking on their life. And I mean, he is also not glamorizing it. So he could, in turn, make that into a positive in a way. Like as cliche as that sounds, like it could possibly be like a negative to a positive. Like, hey, this is what we've grown up seeing. And this is kind of like the role models that we've had, and this is like the path that we might take, but like really consider it. So having somebody from that standpoint might actually be helping more people in a positive way. Whereas New York, yes, there's gangs in the East Coast, but it is still not as heavy. So I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's like a side to every, it's a double edged sword in a way.
And one thing, shout out to Doggy Diamonds TV. I like his platform, but he was saying that NWA had some positive songs like "Express Yourself," but then you look at their last album, that kind of negates the first album because that last album sonically is I haven't heard an album top that yet as far as beats wise, but the content on it is terrible. It's trash. I mean, the stuff they say on there is like you couldn't get away with the stuff nowadays in this politically correct world. You couldn't get away with the stuff they said on that album nowadays. But beats wise, you'd be hard to top in WA's last album. It's even Yellow was talking about that. Straight Out of Compton gets more press, but the last album after that thing hit way harder beats wise. But you know, it's just tricky because the East Coast groups, Ice T even said California rap or West Coast rap is more criminal slang, East Coast rap is more hip hop slang. So it's like two different styles.
Where they can't easily be compared, but it
Yeah.
is if you like look at the lifestyle within the realm of those coasts, where it would kind of make more sense. But again, it's kind of like I guess there's a negative and a positive to each one, but I don't know. I still don't fully agree with everything that he said. I definitely feel like you have to appreciate NWA as being a blueprint for the positive things that they've done. And also, hip
What would you
hop
say that
wise,
they did was positive?
I would say, like how you said, sonically, it really challenged people. It kind of like raised the bar for people to actually put more effort into the way that they wrote. I would say, group wise, I mean, it's nice to be funny, but I think that there needs to be more material as far as something that's people want to hear something that's real, something that they can really feel. You know what I mean? It's fun to talk about, this girl's cute and everything, but, actually talking about topics, I feel like they actually went far and they actually expanded boundaries to a point where other people did want to listen to it, and it was so captivating because it had to do with a lot of things that were politically happening as far as like our like the black culture and police and stuff like that. And I mean, yes, it was in a way negative, but I feel like in a way it kind of at least made us feel like we were heard in a way. And I feel like that's kind of like what you want to listen to. So I mean,
Yeah, and they brought attention to all the stuff going on in California that I hear a lot of East Coast people say to this day, like, we had no clue. Like, I heard Tretch, Doggy Diamond say, we didn't know what, like, they didn't know about our culture. They didn't know. When Ice Cube wrote Boys in the Hood for a group called HBO on the East Coast, they read the Boys in the Hood. They're like, what is ganking? What is a 6'4"? They didn't even know what a 6'4" was. A car, they didn't know what ganking was, which means to steal. So it's just different slang, and they were trying to let the world know what was going on out in California, the gangs, the police brutality, and they said it in a criminal language. They didn't sugarcoat it. And Ice Cube said they didn't even think they would sell that stuff outside their own block. They just wanted to be hot on their own block, and it took off. And there are those that say, well, the powers that be promoted that because for one, the last NWA album was number one in the country without any radio play or really any advertisement. So, that story they say about how they met in the back room to fill up the prisons. I think that's kind of an urban legend. Something probably happened like that because we know how the prison industrial complex works. We know that
yeah,
if you build a prison, you want to keep it occupied. So they're going to make laws for certain areas to fill up them prisons. But it still comes down to the person listening to the music. Like when you stand before the Most High, you're gonna say, "Well, I committed sin because I listened to an NWA album." That's not gonna work. Like you still have your own. You still have to make a choice. You can't blame the music because it's like Ice T said once. He said, "My songs don't make somebody do something wrong. If anything, I just created them a theme song. They're gonna do it anyway. I just created them a theme song." But my music didn't make them go rob a store or something like that. So it comes down to the individual kind of, but I see his point, but he can't let himself off the hook either. because there was some negative stuff coming out of the East Coast, even before NWA. Like I said, Schoolie D, Just Ice. Now it wasn't as bad as NWA. Boogie Down Productions, KRS-One, first album, Criminal Minded. He's holding gun. They got guns. Second album, he kind of switched it to positive, but he's holding a Uzi on the cover. By all means necessary. So, yeah, Special Ed, you're still welcome on the West Coast, man. You all right, man. You're entitled to your opinion. But I still say that you had some lyrics that weren't all, squeaky clean, ready for PBS.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for watching. Did I give a shout out to my son? Shout out to Lennox for my son just started high school. He's pitching and playing baseball. They won 8-0 in his first game. Shout out to you, son. And it was like 6-0 in the first inning. I was like, wow. But shout out to him. Any shout outs you want to give?
No.
Any shout outs to people you work with?
No.
No.
I'll see you when I see you.
Oh, look how pretty she is. That's Mystery Woman. We're probably, I think I said it before after we did our Creed review way back, we're probably going to start a separate channel for like things that come up like trending and...
He really wants to do this second channel, yeah.
Yeah, I want to do reactions with her because she's really funny. You guys miss it. She's hilarious. Hey, she can have you crying, laughing. But she's got a boatload of talent. You just got to bring it to the masses.
You give a handsome man a camera and he just wants to just do a bunch of channels. That's all.
You know how
that's all he wants to do.
Baby! Anyway, this is the J. Roos Theory. Thanks for watching. LSR forever. Make sure to comment, share, subscribe, and be fearless. Yay, yay. Now I'm going to walk over here and shut off the camera.